Tuesday morning on the back of the BC holiday weekend, the August long weekend, and in studios with us, Jim Herperger. Sir, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, I did, actually. Yeah, very good weekend.
Gord went fishing at the coast. He caught fish.
Oh, good.
I toured local people around and took them to the top of Big White, took them to a couple of wineries where we had food of our own bringing on the patio, as long as we bought a bottle or two of their best.
Oh, yeah.
So sat there in the sunshine and felt like we were in some exotic vacation destination. It's a very cool thing to do.
Yeah.
They'll let you bring a picnic basket.
As long as you buy their wine.
As long as you buy some wine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what if you don't partake?
Well, then they're not quite as happy to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're definitely taking us somewhere that I'm quite familiar with, which is the whole concept of home care. Mm-hmm. Aging in place is the official title that the government places upon it.
Aging in place. It's the gold standard. It's what everybody... I think most people would want that. I mean, I think most seniors do want to stay living in their own home and their own familiar surroundings.
If I'm going to be bedridden, may I be bedridden in my own bedroom?
Yeah, not so much bedridden. I mean, I think this is more for people who have some mobility issues,
right.
But they do want to remain. There's way more freedom. They have freedom of choice. They're familiar with their surroundings, their neighborhood. They have friends. They might be in an apartment or a condo that they have other friends.
Close to the church they've been going to?
Church, and they have friends and their various things that they like to do. And it gives them more independence, and independence is good, and it keeps their mind active. And if their mind is active, it helps them, not fall into the trap or fall into dementia and things like that. So it's all good. I mean, I think we all would want that. None of us really want to end up in a facility, an IHA or a private facility, and some of us will, and some of us won't. Some of us will, and it has to happen for some people. But I think everybody agrees that if you can remain in your own home with some independence and some care and support, it's way better.
So, with that as the setup of the walk-in,
and it's cheaper.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where they charge you for every diaper that they change, or every pill that they give you, or every time that they put a bowl of chicken noodle soup into a bowl in front of you. So I get where you're starting at. So are we going to what to watch for?
We'll talk a little bit about that. I really wanted to talk about the fact that it's the governments are great at this about the jargon and they buzzwords and all these wonderful things and enabling phrases, and aren't we lovely, and we all smile, and politicians are great at that. But the fact is that it's underfunded, and especially in Canada, it's the number of demand for home care in Canada from 2008 to 2011 increased by 55%. There was no increase in spending.
Right.
So the government didn't kick in any money. Now the government and your politicians, the local ones especially, are really great at all this nonsense about aging in place and smiling, and they really support it. But let's get off your duffs and let's get some money. And it's a Canada-wide problem. So BC isn't too bad. The Okanagan isn't too bad, but it's a Canada-wide problem, and it's a serious problem. And it doesn't make sense building facilities if you can keep people in their homes as long as possible. But if you don't keep them in their home, you're going to end up building facilities. So it makes sense logically for the government to put more money into home care and across the country.
The facilities that exist, the likes of Cottonwood and so on, the waiting lists are huge. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm talking. There's residential care, which is sort of the most extreme that we think of
care.
Level of care, where there's lots of dementia, people are incontinent, people need help getting in and out of bed. They can't bathe themselves, they can't do their pills themselves, they can't eat themselves, perhaps. Those, there's residential care. There's assisted living, which is a lower level, and people and independent living, and people live somewhat independently. And a lot of the facilities have that in them. But, you can't get into them. I mean, there's very few openings. There's wait lists for all of them. And one of the things that happen is every time a private company comes into the Okanagan or anywhere in BC and builds one, I'd say a
like a Dorchester.
Yeah, something like that, assisted living to something beyond that. Assisted living more. I'm talking
right.
not Dorchester is more independent living.
Right.
But say assisted living where there's some level of assistance. The health agencies go and buy up the rooms. So there aren't any private pay rooms, even if you want to pay for them. So they buy them up, and then they go on a wait list for people for people on assistance, and they get they fit into paying 80% of their income goes towards their care. So there aren't enough facilities. There aren't, and it's not going to get any better. It's going to probably get worse.
As you define this, that's exactly where my mother is that she's in an assisted care facility in Nanaimo Senior Village. Although we've just moved her to Cumberland House up in Cumberland. But 80% of her income goes to
care.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But she has no rights to demand, ask, or whatever. Because she's in a subsidized bed, she basically sits on the waiting list and waits and waits and waits.
Yeah.
If you're paying 100% of the cost, then they give you all kinds of latitude to say, I want to move next week, or I want to move to a house closer to my children, or on.
The problem though with private pay where you're not subsidized, there's not a lot of availability. I mean, the Okanagan is a really good example. There is not a lot of availability. I've got a client who wants to move. She's in residential care, and she wants to move from an assisted living facility to private pay, but there's a wait list,
right.
And she's actually going to be waiting as long as she'd be waiting in her own place to get a private bed, because what she's in is a room with another person. The other person has dementia and wanders at night and hollers and everything. And my client doesn't have dementia, so she wants to get a private bed, a private room. And then she would like some extra care. Well, the problem is she's on the wait list at her place, and then I tried a private pay place, and their private pay place, and there's a wait list. So, it's getting worse, and that's residential care. People in assisted living care, it's the same thing. So, I mean, it's more difficult to live at home care for people in residential care. I mean, you're talking 24-hour care. It's pretty difficult to do that at home. However, for people in assisted living, it is possible to do it at home. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay. And I was just going to say, we'll take a break here, but it strikes me that there is a tremendous business opportunity for a company that basically will resource a bedroom in a home with the appropriate kind of bed that you would find in a hospital scenario and situation. If you need a crane to help somebody or a sling to help somebody get in and out of bed, we'll put that in place. We'll put the wheelchairs that you need that are in place. And it would sound to me that aging in place in your very own home, with somebody assisting in repurposing a room in your house or a bedroom in your house, that would be the solution and the way and the place to go. I don't know if it is the ultimate solution. I need to take a break here, and Jim Herperger is in our studio. We're talking about the whole process of getting yourself on the waiting list, finding that room, finding those services that you absolutely need. If you have any experience with it whatsoever, we'd love to hear from you. If you've been there, done that, if you've been through the hoops, if you've been through the system, if you're in the system or your relative is in the system, and you've got a story or two, we'd love to hear from you. Back in a moment. Happy to take your calls at 250-862-2525 as we, as always, on a Tuesday, spend time talking about law. And in some cases these days, talking about social challenges. Last week, in conversation with Jim Herperger, as we were talking about the funeral home industry and cremation. So today we're talking about aging in place. We're talking about commitment of resources to home care. To care homes, and I have a call, and we'll go to line one. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Calling, wondering how our seniors are bypassed when our druggies are catered to. Again, we have got the money going. We've had Insight on our West Coast. Now we have where the druggies are their choice, taking these drugs, and all of a sudden we've got all these kits supplied to our firefighters, our policemen, and I'm thinking, what's wrong? Who's deciding these money ways? Like, who is deciding that money is going to these things when our seniors, our diabetics have to buy their own needles? You go to Insight, if you're a druggie, they'll even give you cocaine. Like, they help you out trying to get you down. And who is deciding this? This got in so fast that we had these kits made up and distributed. Well, who decides that?
You know what? I'm gonna let Jim Herperger jump in here, but just before I turn the microphone over to him, there have been more than 400 deaths over the last while of people who have taken drugs, believing that they were taking one drug, and instead they find that fentanyl has been put into the tablet, has been put into the mix.
And Phil, I understand that, but it's their choice that they are. It's a choice of life, and we're seeing that on our West Coast. We have seniors that have diabetes that is not a choice. They have to buy all of their meds. Some of them aren't even buying them because they don't have the money. Who in our health system is deciding that we are catering to the druggies?
Well, you know what? You've very articulately presented the challenge of allocation of resources that I think Jim Herperger is going to become ever more increasingly a center point to a conversation. Where do we put resources? Where do we spend budget money?
Thank you, Phil.
Well, I know what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that drug addiction is an illness. I don't believe that people choose to be drug addicts. I don't believe that people choose to be alcoholics.
Sure, they choose to drink and take the drug.
Well, I think
it's their choice.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. But in any event, I do agree with you in the sense that it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. One of the problems with seniors and seniors' issues is that they're not the people that are out wandering the street, falling down, chattering, driving tourists away, making people feel uncomfortable. And that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons I think that the downtown east side gets so much money is because people don't want to look at it and think, well, if we can cover it up and hide it, it's better for us. But the problem is with seniors is the problem we forget. We have never been able to really look at seniors as a core group in our society. We tend to want to put them away. The latest thing with the Supreme Court of Canada decision, euthanasia, is I kind of think that that's almost another example of, well, they're a disposable group because it's always geared towards them. Yeah. I think that what you need to do is we need to put the politicians' feet to the fire. And it's all fine to have them running around and cutting ribbons and things like that. And they love all that. And they're the happiest, friendliest people on voting time. But once the election's over, they don't care about these people. They just ignore them.
So can you be our leader and our helper?
No, I'm too old.
Come on.
No, I agree with you. I mean, it's
be part of it.
It's an allocation of resource issue, and I think things like the Canadian Association of Retired Persons is very good. I think that the Legion does things for people. Some of the churches in the Okanagan do a lot of advocacy work, but we certainly need more of it. And I agree with you. But we should not have a situation where, in the case of home care, the caregiver, who's the spouse, is doing the yeoman's work, driving themselves into an early grave, and they don't get any support to speak of. And and the people who work in the industry or work in the front lines, the people that go to these homes and do care for the elderly, they'll tell you that they worry a lot about the caregiver. And there's no money for it because it's almost like
not a priority.
It's not a priority. The government says, fine, they're doing it. Let the parent do it, let the husband do it, or let the wife do it. We're just lucky at doing it. Yeah, we don't have to spend any money there. But
do we need it so all us seniors go down to the Insight and get our needles for our diabetic?
I think you'd probably do a lot better if you got a whole bunch of seniors and swarm these
Christy Clark's office and a few other
Christy
things.
Clark and all of them, the feds as well. And it's not just the province, it's also the feds.
Yes.
And swarm them and say, don't put up with this nonsense. We tend to just listen to these bloody politicians, and they go on. And we're not too bad in Canada. It's a lot worse in the States. But they peddle this nonsense, and we buy it.
Caller, it's going to get even better because next year's an election in BC. So as the politicians are suddenly making themselves available and suddenly are starting to talk their talk and spin their spin, what you need to do is become politically active as a senior.
Yeah, and don't forget that seniors actually are a big voting group. The only thing you need is, some of the seniors they need some assistance getting out to the polling stations. But seniors in Canada,
together as a bloc,
and they are major voters. I mean, they're much better than, say, First Nations. But we need more of them. We need more people standing up and holding these people's feet to the fire.
Is that you, caller?
I thought it once when we lived in Edmonton. My mother was diabetic and low income, and I threatened to go down on the streets and get her medication.
Listen, I appreciate the fact, the way that you presented the subject, because it always is. It's about the allocation of resources. And as Jim said, it's the wheel that squeaks. It's the people who make the most noise. And maybe diabetic groups or seniors that are diabetic and so on and so forth need to start making more noise. Mark, good morning. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks, Phil and Jim. Good morning. Hey, listen, last caller, with all due respect, I do have an issue with what the last caller said regarding people with drug addiction and alcoholism. Like Jim had said, it's a disease. It's not a choice. It might have been a choice at the beginning to use drugs or start drinking, but it turns into a disease that they cannot help.
That's right.
So please do not put people with addiction problems into that category.
Except that you got, Mark, you have to listen to her, because here's a group of people who can walk into Insight. They get free fresh needles every time they walk in the door.
And here's my second point to that matter as well.
Okay.
I have spoken to many seniors in my family, and the one thing that comes up time and time again is that seniors are on fixed incomes and therefore cannot afford drugs and needles and whatnot, just like the last caller had described. I'd like to remind everybody that for those that aren't seniors, the younger working class people with families, we're all on fixed incomes as well. Just because we're retired, we cannot go out and earn more than we're earning right now. And we have to also pay for medications and help for our families and kids. And I do agree that there is a problem with the system overall. But that problem extends not just with seniors, but it extends to all people in the population, regardless of whether you're a senior or working class or drug addicted, alcoholic, etc. So, yes, there's a problem with the system. Yes, we need to squeeze our politicians to do better. I totally agree with it. But at the same time, we all have the same financial problems. And need I remind a lot of seniors that, with all due respect, you've lived in homes that you've been in for many, many decades. It's maybe time to cash in, sell those homes, get the money, move into a smaller place, and now you can subsidize your income. And I'm sorry, that doesn't extend to all seniors, but a large group of them. Yeah, it's a complicated issue, and I do believe government needs to step up. But this is an issue that touches everybody, not just seniors. Mark, well spoken. Thanks, Phil. You guys have a good day.
Appreciate you too. Yeah. Thanks. And Jim, the reality is that he's again, in a fairly articulate way, expressed the challenge. It is a complex issue.
Well, I think that, but I do agree. I do believe that most seniors, you'll see more. I see lots of them downsizing and getting into smaller homes and saving the money and using the money for their care. And I think most seniors, I think most seniors agree. They've saved the money over the years, and they do want to say if they have savings, they want to use it for their care. And one way to do it is to stay in their home. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can do a lot better. We don't need spending the money on the institutions. If we can keep people in their homes and with quality care, and the people that do it, the frontline people at Interior Health, they work. It's hard work. They're on the go all the time. There's not enough people. They don't make that much. There's not enough people doing it, and so consequently, you have different people coming to the house every day or whatever, and that throws the seniors off. And it would be, if we had more people doing this, more funding, you'd have the same people coming every day, and it would be more like a community. And that's one of the things that drives people crazy, seniors, is that they have a different person coming every couple of days. Plus, they only get one bath a week. And I mean, I don't know what happened. I shower every day, as you do. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you turn 65 or 70, you're supposed to now bathe once a week? Where did that come from? I mean, that's nonsense. I mean, how dare them? I mean, that's wrong.
Yeah.
But the problem is there's not enough people. We don't have enough workers. And you could probably keep a lot more people out of facilities by hiring more home care workers, qualified, and away you go.
Aging in place.
Yeah, no, it's very, very important.
If you can add to the conversation, we would love to hear from you at 250-862-2525 if you have an individual, a senior, or if indeed you are a senior. Aging in place. Love to hear from you. Give us a snapshot of what your life looks like. Does it look like, and does it feel like Jim Herperger just set out, where a different person arrives at your door each and every time, and suddenly, I mean, Jim, as you just said that, I just found myself saying, okay, so now I'm supposed to strip down in front of a person that I've never met, and they're going to help me climb into the bathtub, and then they're going to bathe me. I've never met this person in my life, but somehow I have to be okay with being naked in front of them at a time. Well, seriously.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's the reason a lot of people
if there's
who are seniors and they own their own home and they need help, don't want help. They turn it down because they don't know these people, and they're different people all the time, or they're rough, or they're in a hurry. Like some of these people, the Interior Health people will come and they have, like, say, 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes, and they're out of there.
Yeah.
So they tend to rush. And seniors who with mobility issues, you got to do it slow. And so they feel like they're being rushed. It's not a pleasant experience for them.
And it's not.
On the other hand, they can't kind of move in and stay all morning and drinking tea and
working on the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. But it is a problem, and that's why a lot of seniors don't want people coming in. They don't want them coming in their home because they're basically strangers, and they don't feel comfortable.
Well,
and these people are, they're all vetted, and they work for Interior Health or private agencies. They're bonded. But the fact is that they may be a different person every day. So that's not a good situation.
If you've got snapshots, if you've got pictures, if you have a story to tell, love to hear from you at 250-862-2525. I have one call on hold. I have two lines that are open. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're back with Jim Herperger on this Tuesday morning, talking about home care, the challenges of. Until you said, sir, I shower every day. But now suddenly, how did it become decided that I only need to shower once a week?
The government.
Yeah, no kidding. We're going to be back in a moment here. Aging in place, home care facilities, better to have you in your own home, in your own bed, with people coming to look after you in a comfortable and familiar surrounding, or do you want to be in assisted living? If you've got experience with what is going on within the home care system or within the assisted living program in the province of BC, we'd love to hear from you. Hannah, good morning.
Good morning. I used to work in
in a care home?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in the hospital.
Right.
I tell you, if anybody tells you nursing home is okay to go into, stay in your own home as long as you can. Stay in familiar surroundings. And why should a senior give up everything they've worked all their lives for and go in a one room or whatever they have here, a bedroom situation where sometimes you share, people wander, come in and go out. No, Mm-hmm. And furthermore, I don't think that the hospital here should always come with these stupid forms to ask anybody that is a senior, happened to me twice, do you still live alone? Do you still do your own housework? Well, the first time I answered the questions. The second time, when she came with the form and said, "Do you still do your own housework?" I said, "No, I have a full-time housekeeper." "Do you still do any gardening?" "No, I have a gardener." Like, what stupid questions are they asking these people?
Hannah, so you're indicting the system. Is there any, is there any bright spot within the system of care, or
Yes,
are we way
people,
behind the curve?
Yes, absolutely. For people that absolutely cannot be left alone, like dementia, Alzheimer, they're better off in the care because there's always somebody there to watch out for them. And the same with medications. Like that, I agree. But as long as you can function and take care of yourself, don't give up your house.
Yep.
Bill, I live in quite a very large house. We had the house when we had 4 children here.
Can I move in with you?
Oh, absolutely. I have so
I
much
only need-
room.
I only need
Huge
one.
house, 4 balconies. I mean, you're welcome.
I only need one room.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
But, I'm not going to give it up. No.
Good for you.
Good for you.
And my husband is 80 years old.
So
And
you're
if the day comes that he needs care, I'll remodel and put a hospital bed in here. And I have a daughter who's also a care aide, so
Yeah.
we'll be fine. But more and more people and more families should help out their family. And no, stay in your own home. That's where you're happy. Then you don't have to give up all the nice things that you bought.
Okay, Jim, and Hannah, stay on the line here, Jim. But
Okay.
Hannah said something. She's familiar with the system. She knows what it takes to look after an individual, which a lot of us do not. That's one of the biggest challenges, is it not? So the people that you talk with, Jim, do they really understand what the requirements are and how this looks?
Well, it varies. I mean, some people the caregivers are wonderful. Some aren't good at it, and not that they're bad people. It's just that they're not equipped for the challenges. You can, especially if the person has dementia. I mean, you can function pretty well with someone in your home, your spouse or your partner has dementia, but there comes a time when you can't sleep at night. They might wander, they might get violent, you can't leave them alone. You can't, burn the house down, things like that. So, people say, well, I'll look after them, which raises another thing is that Interior Health has to do better job of this, and it's a function of money. It's not a plot by Interior Health, but there has to be more respite care available for people. So that if they are looking after a senior,
so
they can
the
take
caregiver gets a break.
They need a break.
Yeah.
They do 90% of the work, and the Interior Health does maybe 10%. The caregiver really, there's no focus on the caregiver. You need way more focus because they're going to kill them.
Yeah.
You'll kill them.
Hannah, I appreciate you being here. You were very eloquent this morning. Don, good morning.
Good morning. Just a couple of comments. My father was in an extended care home, and there were times I went to visit him at 3:00 in the afternoon and found him sitting in the dining room, and asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Well, nobody's come to take me back to my room."
So he's been sitting there since lunch?
Since lunchtime, and I think our problem in Interior Health and the government, I think it's a lack of respect for our elders, and that's what we need to do. Our seniors need respect. They've worked all their lives. They've worked hard. They're seniors, and we should respect them. And the government should understand that and help out Interior Health. If they need people, they should get people. It's just a matter of respect, and I think that's the problem with our whole society is people don't respect each other anymore.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't think someone should be sitting there for 3 or 4 hours. And I see that in some of the places I go in. They're just sitting there. It's a function of staffing and numbers, and they don't have enough people. And so some of these people who are quiet, they just get left behind, and that's wrong. One thing you might want to consider, though, is that if you're a family member, is making sure you have a representation agreement for health care for your senior, for your father, mother, or whatever. Because one way that they can block you and keep you sort of out of their hair is to tell you that you don't have privacy doesn't allow them to tell you anything, or you don't have any authority. With a representation agreement, you got all the authority in the world, and you can really lay on the lumber to these people.
Don, I got to ask you, did you take your complaint up the chain, if you will? Have you written a letter? Did you say, this is what's happened to my senior, and if this happens again, I'm going to go further up the chain?
We did at the time. We said, this was really unacceptable. And their comment was, well, he never said anything. So we thought he wanted to be there, but he just had a small room. Now, there are some very, very good care facilities available, but they're very expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, if you want to spend $3,000 a month, you're just fine. Thank you very much.
That's right.
One of the things that you just brought something up that reminded me of something that burns me to no end. Is smoking. I used to be a smoker, and of course, there's nothing more sanctimonious than a reformed smoker. But
true.
The thing that burns me up so much is that these seniors facilities, they'll have a smoke pit, and it's way the heck out in the middle of nowhere, and it's way far away from the doors, and they punish these people. And there's a duty under the act to accommodate, and they don't accommodate. They push them away. I had one lady in Kamloops they had the smoke pit by the garbage dump. So you can imagine what it's like in the summer, what it stunk. It just stunk. Right. Unbelievable. And she had to go through, she'd have to go in her wheelchair through a car park garage, and she was blind to get to this. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, there's absolutely no reason for that. There's not that many seniors that smoke. And if they smoke, it's an addiction. They should accommodate them. It's crazy.
Let them have their cigarettes.
Absolutely.
And it's respect. And,
that is absolutely.
We need to respect our seniors. So it's as cut and dried as that, I believe.
Yeah. Don, I appreciate you being here this morning. Good one. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Okay, so my mother just turned 100 7 weeks ago and is now in assisted living in Saanich Peninsula Hospital on the island. And before that, she was in, it wasn't assisted living. What is it when you can take care of yourself? But
independent living.
Independent living, yes. She was until she, as I said, just over a year ago. And you're right, different people would come twice a day to get her up in the morning. But she had to get out of bed 6 o'clock in the morning to open her sliding glass to let the worker in. Sometimes they wouldn't come till 9, but she had to open that door, so she was kind of leery about that. And yes, there would be gentlemen that would come and give her a bath or shower, which
there's the part of it, isn't it? And there's the part of the story. So here's a woman who's whatever age.
Yes, and it was scary for her because she'd never had a man come in and bathe her.
That's right. That's not acceptable. That shouldn't happen.
No, but
it's
it does.
Wrong. Yeah, no,
it does.
Yeah.
But I spend every 6 weeks I go down to the coast and spend a week in the assisted living area. I don't stay in there, but I'm with my mum for 5 days. Sometimes there for lunch. I try and get her out for most of the time so she can get away. But yeah, people do just sit there strapped in.
Slumped over.
This isn't what I want for myself.
Yeah. And there becomes the other part of the story is what do you want for yourself that you see with your senior.
And you don't want this. You really don't want this. You see, they're big business because they're in diapers. Lucky for my mum, she's still continent, so not so for her. But the others, they're in diapers. They have to be, they have the somebody, feeding them.
Yep.
And they're all the pills and potions, and they're big business. Seniors are big business. Pharmacology, you name it.
Sarah, on that note, I'm sorry, but I've got to go. Does that basically wrap us up? No, it doesn't wrap us up. We'll be back in a moment.